Welcome back, everybody. UFC 297, Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, just recently wrapped up. Lots to talk about, and we got to check and see how our guys did and see how we did. So let's not waste any more time. We'll go one by one through these fights and see what happened. Our first fight was between Malcolm Gordon and Jimmy Flick. We'll refresh our memory on who the guys picked, and then we'll see how it affects them in the overall leaderboard. So this is where we ended off with the guys last week. Three-way logjam at the top for a positive $61.93. It was only the first week, so there wasn't too much separation. In fourth place was the MMA-guru with a negative $90.07. And rounding out the guys, DFS by the numbers at a negative $103.40. And their picks were... So who won this kickoff contest? Well, Flick was getting his ass kicked constantly. Gordon looked like he was trying to take him out in the first round. Flick had nothing to offer but some feeble attempts at trying to look for a place for a sub. Continued to get his ass kicked into the second round, and then grabbed a choke and tapped him out like he was always planning on doing exactly that. So for the handicappers that picked Flick, how much was he worth? Well, he was the underdog at a plus 110, so 110 bucks added to the accounts of those fortunate enough to make the choice. Those that bet 100 bucks on Gordon are out 100 bucks. The next fight was the ladies, and Jasmine Jazz Devicius just dominated the whole way. Just pounded Cachoeira repeatedly. Apparently she doesn't have knockout power, but the quantity was unbelievable, the control was unbelievable, and in the third round she ended up getting the sub. She was only worth $25.32 for the win because she was highly favored, but that was the side to be on. And all of them were. Next up, Johan Lainez versus Sam Patterson. Ended up being pretty easy work for Patterson. Got the sub in the first round and got 120 bucks for anyone that bet him, which was exactly none of our guys. Jillian Robertson looked great getting a TKO round 2 over Polyana Vienna. All the guys had Robertson and will benefit from her $44.44 value. And for those of us keeping an eye on the channel bet system, which we'll get to later, worked out fortuitously. We got in early with a bet on Robertson because she was within our range, and then ended up moving into a stronger favorite area that we wouldn't have taken had she opened up that way. So worked out nicely. Next fight on the card was Surrey City versus Ramon Tavares. I repeatedly called Ramon Brad Tavares in the previous video. Sorry, Ramon. This fight was crazy. Tavares had City looking like Carrie on prom night in the first. But then he just put on the brakes pretty much. He was real fancy and slick with the missing of the shot. I mean, City would have to throw 8 punches to connect with one. But Tavares wasn't doing much else. And I'm not surprised the judges gave him the match, but honestly, City did more to deserve second round and the third round, and if they're judging by rounds, I think he should have taken the fight. I think this one was a bad call. That being said, it worked out nicely for us, as we'll see later. How did the guys think it was going to look? Next one was Jourdain Woodson. Not a real barn burner. Jourdain couldn't really get at Woodson much to hurt him. And Woodson preferred to bounce around and move his arms like he was having a epileptic seizure. When it was all over, somebody had to win, but I suppose Woodson was the guy to go with. Apparently neither of the fighters thought they deserved it because it was loud when the decision was announced. and the fighters thought it went the opposite way. Jourdain and his camp started celebrating, and Woodson went to congratulate him. Just odd from start to finish. How did the guys see it ahead of time? After that one was Brad Katona versus Garrett Armfield. It was a good fight. Not quite like Katona's last Ultimate Fighter battle, but it was okay. Seemed like Katona was off mostly during the beginning parts of the rounds and then would turn everything he had on for like the last 30 seconds trying to steal the round at the end. And not that that was his only plan. That's a good tactic, but that seems to be how it worked out. It was close. I think some people think Katona should have won it. I don't know. I wouldn't put it in the robbery category, but maybe our cappers would. Getting to the main card, we had Arnold Allen versus Mosvar Evloev. Most of the guys were on Evloev, and he didn't disappoint, although this was a great fight, and Allen's just a beast with the damage he can take and, still give it out. So this was a good one. Chris Curtis and Marc-Andre Barriault threw down. Eventually, that is. Started out slow, crowd was booing. I felt like they picked it up in the last part of the second and for the third round, but the crowd kept on booing. It's possible they were booing just Chris, but it sounded like they were booing the action, which is a little bit spoiled. Anyway, Curtis got the split decision win and was worth $55.56 to anyone that bet $100 on him. Don't even know what to say with Neil Magny and Mike Malott. I was talking out loud to the screen about how they can never make Magny a main card participant ever again. His last fight, he just stood there and got his leg crushed. This fight, he started out standing there with getting his leg crushed. He seemed to have no ability to adjust or no desire to adjust, quite frankly. And then out of nowhere, with seconds to go in the third round, he gets Malott on the ground. Malott's gassed, and Magny just pounds him until he gets a TKO literally with seconds left. The co-main event between Bueno Silva and Pennington for the vacant belt didn't seem really like a championship fight to me. Bueno Silva barely did anything besides looking gassed. And Pennington, it seems, could have, taken her out on multiple occasions. If she would have just stayed at range where she was piecing her up pretty good. Her corner, in between rounds and during the fight, were begging her to get out of the clinches and, stand at range. Maybe she was tired and the clinch was a rest. Who knows? But I think Juliana Pena beats her. Sounds like that's what's going to be next. And Amanda Nunes would wipe the floor with any of them. So pretty sad, quite frankly, but oh well. Raquel Pennington won by unanimous decision. She's the new champion, and she was worth $142 to anyone that took her. And we're down to the main event. Sean Strickland, Dricus du Plessis. Thought Sean won 3-2. He was more active. He was more accurate. I think Dricus controlled the action a lot of the time as far as position in the ring. He's strong, but he's wild. He's not as accurate. He throws big bomb punches that miss very often. But I felt like Strickland slowed down in the middle rounds when he shouldn't or didn't need to. He stands in between rounds, stands up, doesn't even get on a stool. And I felt like this was one of the fights that his cardio didn't look as good as it usually does. So it went to the judges, and they went with du Plessis. All that said, congratulations to Dricus. Seems like a gentleman. He'll certainly be a hero in South Africa, and I'm sure Dana will use that as a springboard to get some activity going down there as far as fight cards. But I feel bad for Sean. I really like him. I don't think that he cares about the championship much at all. But I felt like I didn't want him to be one and done, and du Plessis has a bright and long career in front of him, maybe. So, but it is what it is. And now we get to the good stuff. How did the guys do in their leaderboard positioning with these results, and how did our system do? I think we did pretty well, but we'll have to see. We certainly got Duplessis on the end, and I made it a double bet. So that's going to be beautiful, but let's check it out. Come on. It was a pretty rough one for most of our guys, but let's see just how rough. MMA experts had a rough night. Did pick Flick and Woodson as underdogs, so that was nice. But got only 3 of the rest of the fights right for an overall record of 5-7, while going 0 for 4 in the final 4 fights, topping it off with a lock pick of Strickland. Now, I happen to agree that Strickland won, and I didn't think Tavares won, so all of a sudden he's looking 7-5, and who knows from there. But this is how the game works, so we're not going to shy away from it. Looks like Sherdog just cleaned up. We'll have to see how it works out. But I believe they went 8 for 12. Anytime you're getting 2 out of 3 right and picking 3 underdogs, 1 in the main event, you know you're onto something. We Want Picks was looking at 50%, 6-6 record. Did call DDP in the main and Flick in the opener. But other than that, only found 4 correct spots. So we'll have to see what that does to his numbers. The mma-guru not looking well. He did call Tavares, Curtis, and DDP, but managed only 2 more correct calls for a 5-7 record like MMA experts. I feel like our man Guru is going to take a plunge, and that's hard to do from 4th place when there's only 5 participants, but we will see. DFS by the numbers, another 50% with 6-6 record. Did call Flick, Tavares, Curtis, DDP. I don't know, I keep saying Curtis like he was the underdog. He wasn't. Okay, there's nothing left to do in this section but reveal the new positions for the fellas. So let's get to it. Congratulations, Sherdog. Not only the only person in positive territory, but added a substantial amount to the positive territory he was already in. It's early. Things are going to vary wildly, but he's looking good right now. How about us? How did we do?
What about you, Dad? Fuck you. No, Dad. What about you? Fuck you! No, Dad! What about you? Fuck you!
Hey, no need for violence. We'll show you how we did. In fact, we're quite eager to. So, is the channel betting system yielding anything? Do we need to make adjustments? Do we need to throw it in the fireplace and take up skateboarding? Let's find out. Our first group of bets came from the 5 for 5 rule. Anytime all 5 guys are on a fighter and they're favored with a minus 299 or better line, then we bet them. That group included Leoness, Robertson, and Katona. This was our worst performing group, despite the fact that it came from the unanimous section. So we're going to have to take a look at that and see what that might mean. Leoness was a joke, but Katona might have won if he did things a little bit differently, and he might have won anyway. So calm down, MMAs. Calm down. The next group turned out to be the best group, come from the 4 out of 5 rule. If 4 out of the 5 guys like a fighter and they are a favorite of minus 199 or better for us, then we bet it. This gave us Evloev and Duplessis. We won with both. And we were intuitive enough to realize that 4 guys going for an underdog in the championship event should be a special circumstance, so we gave it the double bet and hit. Very nice. Lastly, we have our 3 out of 5 rule. Applies only to underdogs that 3 out of the 5 guys like. If the fighter is plus money and 3 out of 5 like them, we're liking them too. This section provided 3 fighters, Flick, Tavares, and Barrio. Likely none that I would have picked on my own, and here we are. Good little system. Okay, well, we definitely like how things are going so far. I'm not quite ready to drop the no bet restrictions. We'll still keep this hypothetical for the time being, but if it keeps on going like this, whether we've had time to refine it or not, we're going to be turning this into bankroll, baby. Till next time, everybody.